Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Pop Culture Vortex. I am your host, Alex Pinto, and it is my privilege to welcome you back to another episode on my channel. And this time we are going to be talking about Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, though. I'm not going to be talking much about the original theatrical cut. I'll mention it here and there, right? Maybe draw some comparisons, but yeah, for this review, I am going to be mostly focused on the Richard Donner cut. All right. So, here's what I take away from the Richard Donner cut is that I call it the original Snyder cut because they kind of went through a similar situation where, the director had to leave. Now, like, I guess there are kind of two different reasons why Zack Snyder and Richard Donner left their, respective projects, but like, either way, they had to leave the projects and then, they had to get another director to come in to finish the film. The only difference is Zack Snyder got the credit for the film either way, whereas Richard Donner got no credit, and Richard Lester got all the credit because I guess most of the footage was still his. Here's what I'll say about Superman 2. I love Superman 2. I mean, I do not think it's as good as the first movie, as I do. I've always been more of a fan of the first movie more than the second. I know it's more the popular thing to say that Superman 2 is the better film, but for me, I've always preferred the first one. I do have actually some gripes with the second movie that I will definitely dive into in a bit. But yeah, like I do love Superman 2 a lot. Like, obviously, I do love that it starts off with a tribute to Christopher Reeve. I mean, but I don't think Christopher Reeve ever got to see this version before his unfortunate passing. So it's really nice that they did that, and I'm glad they did that. Now, of course, they started off with, we're back on Krypton. Now, this time, instead of, showing Lara or like not even showing Marlon Brando at all, he is in the film this time around, which is I think that's probably the reason why most of us, including me, prefer the Richard Donner cut is because of the return of Marlon Brando. Considering that the original theatrical cut did not include Marlon Brando due to some legal issues, I believe it was. But yeah, like bringing in Marlon Brando was definitely a big upside to this film, right? And and his scenes are great. I mean, every scene he's in is fantastic. So yeah, like so we start off with the trial of General Zod. They get sent to the Phantom Zone, all that stuff. And then, one of the things I like about this film is that they actually, instead of doing this whole that weird scene where you had like Lois Lane going to the Eiffel Tower. I don't know what the hell her plan was. Was she planning on interviewing those terrorists that were planning on blowing up the Eiffel Tower? Like, yeah, I've never liked that scene at all, the Eiffel Tower scene. And yeah, and then obviously they had Superman take that bomb that they had in the Eiffel Tower, and then it blows up, and that's what releases General Zod. But this time, they actually decided to have the nuke that Superman throws into space from the first movie, and that's what releases General Zod, which I thought was a nice way to sort of connect the film. Like I thought that was a really nice way to connect the two films, and they kind of and make them out to be like really like a part one, part two in a way. You know what I mean? So that was really cool. Now we'll say this: the effects of this film. One thing I'll say about Superman 2 in general, even from the theatrical cut, is that I've always felt like the theatrical cut's effects, in some ways, they were always kind of downgraded. Like even the flying Superman didn't really look as good as the first movie. I won't deny that. But in this film, there were some. I mean, I understand why Richard Donner didn't make some of the effects look too good. Like for instance, when the nuke is flying into space, but like it looked a little too video gamey. Like it nowhere near felt like it was made whether it was in the 70s or the 80s. So yeah, I've never really liked the way he utilized some of the effects, right? Like, oh whatever, those are minor details, right? Like it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really affect the movie all too much. But yeah. But anyways, the nuke does release General Zod. Obviously, they start flying into outer space and all that stuff. But we also go to the Daily Planet, which is where this movie kind of officially kicks off, right? We see Clark back at the Daily Planet, and then we see that Lois Lane starts to suspect Clark. Which, by the way, I'm sorry, anybody should be able to see those through those damn glasses. Like, come on, I'm not just gonna take off my glasses. And which, by the way, if you guys start writing in the comment section, oh my god, what happened to the pop culture vortex guy? Come on, I'm right here. Stupid, but like it's always been funny the way they've done that. But anyways, so Obviously, she suspects that he's Superman, and then she decides to fly out a window. Well, not fly out, but she jumps out a window. Clark super speeds down, but doesn't dress up as Superman, but rather he just uses his super breath to slightly have her land very softly, and then uses heat vision to bring down the tarp, and she just bounces off and goes to a fruit stand, and that's it. Like he does not dress up as Superman and all that, but also just not to raise suspicion for Lois Lane, because otherwise, if he had done that, then he would have been screwed. Like his identity would have been revealed to her. But we also get Gene Hackman back. I was about to say Hugh Jackman. No, Hugh Jackman is not even in nowhere near this movie. But anyways, we get Gene Hackman and Ned Beatty back as Lex Luthor and Otis. They're still a great duo. They're plotting their escape. They have this black box that supposedly could actually track Superman's whereabouts of where he actually travels to up north. Which, by the way, what's he doing up north? To ski? Well, this just kills me. I love that character so much. And anyways, that's like it's just nice having those two. Like, I mean, it's funny because it's actually the last time we actually see Otis in a movie, right? When he's not in the movie all that much, but yeah, I would have loved to have seen more of that duo. All right, now I am sorry about the lighting that's changing. It's just that right now I'm trying to work on that, like see what works best for the video. Like sometimes it kind of comes off, like you'll see these like lines come up. Like I'm very sorry about that. I'm still trying to work on how to properly make these videos and hopefully improve them over time. As I'm still new to the game, in this aspect, I'm new to YouTube and stuff. So little by little, you'll see this channel very much improve. But anyways, we also do go to General Zod and Ursa and Non in outer space, but they're on the moon and they meet up with these astronauts. And well, these astronauts are they get killed. Like they all die. All right, like these guys are merciless. They should and all that stuff. But one of the things I will say about I like about these characters better than in theatrical cut is that first of all, Non, the theatrical cut made him too cartoonish and kind of a joke, and obviously they made him very dumb. So like they definitely toned that down in this movie, and he's just naturally like this killing machine. Like he doesn't talk. He's a silent killing machine that shows no mercy to anyone and just is just willing to rip people apart no matter what. And then Ursa, like they made her obviously very flirtatious. They even kind of even a bit sexualized in the usual theatrical cut. In this film, well, yeah, you still have the flirtatious aspect a bit, but like she's very vile, very ruthless, like shows no mercy to anyone, like and she's quite badass too. Like she's really cool in the movie. And of course, General Zod, Terrence Stamp as as General Zod is amazing. I mean, he's just the true General Zod. His voice, and everything, and of course, the iconic line "Kneel before Zod" is amazing. I mean, the guy just captures General Zod very well. He makes his motivation very clear that he wants to rule, all right, and he wants power. So like he makes that very clear in this movie, and that's why I've always appreciated Terrence Stamp as the character. Now we also do have Lex Luthor and Otis trying to escape prison. Now they're trying to sneak around. Like, well, first of all, in their cell, they had figured out a way to make a projection of them being in the cell and trick the officers. But obviously that doesn't last long. They trigger an alarm. But like, what happens? That Miss Tessmacher comes in with a hot air balloon. And of course, there's a ladder. They try to climb up. Lex Luthor climbs up while Otis tries, but unfortunately, his weight won't allow it. Like he starts bringing down the hot air balloon. So Lex Luthor just kicks the ladder and then just abandons Otis completely. And it's poor Otis, man. He can't catch a break. Like he just abandons him, and that's it. And so they go up north, in which then he starts looking around. He finds a control system in the Fortress of Solitude, and he finds these recordings of Jor-El, in which then that's where he learns about General Zod and these Kryptonians. He sees potential and is like, huh, criminals from Krypton. Like if I were to team up with them, ooh, I can cause some shit in this world, and I can finally get the things I desire, which is land, which has obviously been his true motivation in the first Superman. So I thought that was very interesting. I will say this, another thing gripe I've had with this movie, and I'm pretty sure even the theatrical cut has this problem too, is that the continuity error on Margot Kidder's face. I mean, Margot Kidder is fantastic as Lois Lane. Like she perfects the role, right? She's great as Lois Lane. But the problem is the continuity error on her face is very much noticeable. Like in some scenes, she'll look exactly like she did in the first Superman, and then she'll look like this in another scene. So it's like, yeah, like it just kind of shows that like this was a movie that went through production problems. That's one of the things I don't like about these versions that you can tell that they went through some production problems. All right, like as somebody who critiques movies, I can tell that no problem. And so that's kind of why that kind of brings my like enthusiasm for this movie down a bit. I still like the movies very much, right? I still like Superman 2 a lot, but that's just me, right? I It does bring down my love for the movie a bit. Now, we also do have a scene where Clark and Lois are at a hotel scene, right? Or at a hotel, right? And they're talking, Clark is trying to basically have Lois appreciate him more. Like he's doing all these for things for her, but like he doesn't feel like he's being seen, right? And he clearly has feelings for Lois. But Lois is still suspicious of Superman. Now, of course, she becomes more suspicious because in the scene before this, they're in Niagara Falls, they're walking and all of a sudden a boy almost falls into the falls and Superman flies in. And Lois Lane goes like, "Wait, I've never heard that Superman goes to Niagara Falls. But Clark was just here, but he's not here, and Superman's here, and they're never." So she puts the pieces together, and then, well, in that hotel scene, she shoots him, and well, he goes like, "Oh, what if I wasn't Superman? You could have killed Clark Kent." And she goes like, "Oh, it's a flash round." Genius! I loved it. It's so damn good. Now, in the meantime, we have this. Zod does arrive to Earth. Obviously they're wrecking shit, right? Like they run into a police cruiser, right? There's two cops there, right? And they give them orders. They try to shoot them, but it doesn't go well. Now we'll say this that they kind of do that whole thing where they obviously attack the police officer and stuff, right? But the problem is then in the next time you see Zod, they've already invaded the town. And like everybody and like they're already causing some warfare in that one town. But the thing is, it kind of feels is that throws off the pacing a bit. But here's why, because obviously in the original theatrical cut, you had the scene where, General Zod sort of, invading that town along with the other two. But the thing is, I guess Richard Donner just want to limit how much footage he uses from the Richard Lester version. Because in this movie, because obviously mentioning the continuity errors on Lois Lane, right? Richard Donner still uses scenes from the theatrical cut, whereas Zack Snyder, right back when he made Justice League, he did not use any footage from Joss Whedon. Like that Snyder cut was 100% the Snyder cut, whereas Richard Donner, keep in mind that this was meant to be like Richard Donner's original vision. Well, it's not necessarily his original vision. It is basically a glimpse into what he wanted the film to be, like an idea, if you will, but like it's still what I think he really aimed to do was that first of all, he does change the tone. Like the tone is very different from the theatrical cut. Like theatrical cut was definitely a bit more comedic, more lighthearted, whereas this one is kind of a bit more darker, more serious, even shows a bit of tragedy and stuff like that, right? I mean, keep in mind, like one thing about the Superman 2, like theatrical cut was more child friendly, whereas this one, you do have General Zod killing people left and right and stuff. So that's always one thing I've always appreciated about the Donner cut more than the theatrical cut. But we also have Superman taking Lois to the fortress, where, they have a little date over there, right? They're having champagne and stuff. But Superman makes the decision to have Jor-El take away his powers, going into a chamber that has obviously the Red Sun's energy, which obviously just takes away his powers and he becomes human. And he does it because he loves Lois Lane and he wants to have a normal life with her, in which Jor-El does not agree. He believes that it's like you have a higher purpose. You have to serve humanity. He's like, haven't I done enough? I just want this opportunity to live a normal life with the woman I love, and that's understandable. And that just shows Clark's humanity. Like, that's something that the, theatrical cut I felt like lacked, is that he just sort of he does go to Laura, he says, "Yeah, and I love Lois Lane, so please grant me this wish." And it's just kinda quick, it's just really, like he doesn't really put much of an effort, whereas this one, you have a back and forth between father and son, and that's what I like more. And once again, any scene that has Marlon Brando's Jor-El is amazing. But yeah, in the meantime, obviously, General Zod is invading the world. You know, they bring it to the White House. They have the President of the United States kneel. Which, by the way, the White House scene is so much better. I mean, like I said, like when I talk about the tone and how like you see General Zod killing people left and right, that scene was everything. Like, oh my god, you even have them shooting people and everything. People are dying. They're just throwing people through walls. It's amazing that scene. I love that they extended that scene even more, which it only adds to like the president just fearing Zod, you know. And then he says, "There's one man who can challenge you," but unfortunately, that man doesn't have his powers. So him and Lois go to a diner, in which then they run into this trucker dude who is a douchebag, and he takes Clark's seat as he's about to go to the bathroom. Clark goes like, "Hey, I'm gonna use my seat," in which then that starts a fight. Unfortunately, Clark, because he has no powers, he gets his ass kicked. He sees his own blood for the first ever time in his entire life. He tries to make a stand, but he cannot, and he just gets destroyed by this trucker. And yeah, like that scene just works so well, just showing Superman's vulnerabilities. In reality, if I wouldn't even the theatrical cut did this very well, is that in that scene we saw Clark vulnerable, which is something he is not used to. Like we've seen him being human, but like this time he is full on just a human being. He can't do anything. So when he sees on the news that General Zod has invaded the world and is trying to rule Earth, he realizes he made a mistake. That his father tried to tell him, try to warn him, and he didn't listen. Now, I will say this, even Spider-Man 2 kind of took inspiration from this in terms of like, the responsibility of being a hero and like sacrificing the powers for the woman you love and trying to have a normal life. So Spider-Man 2 definitely was inspired by this film for sure. But Clark has to make the journey back to the fortress, and the way he gets his powers back is much better. Like, obviously, you have Jor-El there. Jor-El tells him, "Okay, now you've made a mistake, all right, but in order to restore your powers, I have to use whatever energy I have left to officially bring them back from the green crystal that obviously provides Jor-El's consciousness. But unfortunately, that means that Jor-El will no longer be able to talk to Clark, and that basically Clark is going to have to lose another father, in which Clark is heartbroken. He doesn't want that, but unfortunately he has to do whatever is necessary. In which, and you have this powerful moment when Jor-El projects himself in front of Clark, right, and they're finally face to face, where Clark finally gets to see what his father truly looks like, but up close and personal. And then, bam, he gets his powers back. We also do have Lex Luthor finding the Kryptonians at the White House. He's there going like, "Hey, I got a proposition for you. I could bring you Superman." He tells him that Superman is the son of Jor-El, in which then he makes a deal with them. Obviously, he wants like I think he wanted Australia in that scene, in which he wants to rule Australia, and John's like, "Oh, okay, sure, I'll give you Australia, but you got to give me Superman." In which then they go to the Daily Planet. You know, Lex Luthor goes like, "Oh, there's his girlfriend." He's like, "Oh, but you told me Superman. His girlfriend's there. He'll come for her." And then obviously Superman flies in. Now, as much as I say I like this better than the theatrical cut, there are things I liked in the theatrical cut that better than this one. And of course, that is, when Superman flies in, he goes to the window and he says, "General, would you care to step outside?" An amazing line. Like, it's literally like, I get chills hearing that line. And unfortunately, Richard Donner changes that. So instead, he says, like, "General, ever heard of freedom of the press?" It's not as badass as the other line. So I wish he kind of kept that in. But I guess he just wanted to make as much changes as possible. In which then, obviously, either way, General Zod and Non and Ursa go out to fight Superman. They're chasing him around Metropolis and stuff. Now, I will admit, there's this one moment where, General Zod goes like, "Oh, I thought you were a coward," and then Superman goes like, "I'm not a coward, Zod." Yeah. Unfortunately, in this version, right, when he says, "I'm," like, there's in the theatrical cut, it sounded like
I'm
this,
not a coward, Zod.
and then this one, it sounds like this.
I'm not a coward, Zod.
It's not good. It does not sound good at all, this version. So yeah. Thankfully, like, I guess it's kind of the end of those weird audio dubs they do in this movie, but like, yeah, and then obviously the fight ensues. Like, it's an awesome fight. Like, these in this version, they have Superman punching Non. But and like, yeah, I guess it kind of I guess it's kind of it looks dated. It looks like it looks fake, obviously, right? But at least it's better than the kick from the theatrical cut. Yeah, it's I prefer this. Now he does add a few extra pretty good effects that he does in Richard Donner for this scene, right? It definitely makes the fight a lot better, more darker. Because obviously in the theatrical cut it was more goofier that scene, right? They were like Non was being all dumb, and Ursa was cracking a few jokes here and there. Thankfully, this one it was much darker, it was much more serious. General Zod was just showing no mercy at all, right? So that's what I appreciate about this version more. And it just showed one of the things that people complained about Man of Steel was that when Superman's there punching Zod through buildings and all that, right? That he wasn't saving people in the process. In this film, now here's the thing. Since because they were limited by technology, Superman wasn't doing as much. He wasn't throwing them to buildings or anything. That's just a limitation of technology at the time. I guarantee you, if this movie was made today, you would be seeing exactly what you see in Man of Steel, but except this time you would be seeing Superman trying to save the people, like trying to catch the buildings and all that stuff and keep them away from the people and stuff like that, right? Whereas obviously Man of Steel, you don't see that. They're just simply fighting and they're just throwing each other around buildings. But yeah, you have a moment where they throw a bus. Superman tries to catch it, but they throws him back. Everybody thinks Superman's dead for a second, but like Superman comes out and then he flies away. And the people are like, "Oh no, Superman, why are you leaving us?" But of course, Superman wants to lead them to the Fortress of Solitude, and so I can keep them away from the people because Superman knows that General Zod will come after him, considering that if he knows that he has a son Jor-El and he wants revenge on Jor-El, he'll go after him and he will try to kill Superman. Because of obviously, if you saw the first movie, you will bow down before me, Jor-El. Both you and one day yours. Like obviously, that's he was always going to go after Superman no matter what. So we go over to General Zod. They take Lois hostage and they take Lex Luthor as well to the Fortress of Solitude. Now we'll say this. Now I do prefer like this simple scene because really there's not a fight in the Fortress of Solitude, where it's simply just them having a dialogue moment. And I actually kind of liked it. I thought the dialogue was really well put together. I thought the intensity of the fact that they have Lois Lane and Superman's there trying to like make sure she doesn't get hurt, and then he's trying to tell Lex Luthor's like, "Hey, let's put them in this, in the chamber with red solar energy, right? Because it could take away their powers." Lex Luthor, being the treacherous snake he is, tells him, "No, no, he's saying that he wants you all to go in there." But then Superman goes like, "Ah, you treacherous snake." So they make Superman go in there, otherwise they would kill Lois Lane. Now, I do love that. Like I said, the dialogue scene was nice. I thought it was better than what they did in the theatrical cut. Like the whole weird Superman having mirages and stuff like that. And also, don't get me started on when Superman actually takes out a symbol and throws it at Non, and then it just turns into some weird plastic that traps him down. Even as a kid, I thought that was stupid. So yeah, I'm glad they took that shit out. So yeah, Superman goes in the chamber and they think he's powerless. He asks him to kneel, and then when he takes Zod's hand, he crushes it, and then he grabs Zod, and I don't care what anybody says. Superman killed Zod in this scene. All of you complain when Superman snaps his neck in Man of Steel, but at least in Man of Steel he shows empathy. He feels bad for what he just did. He didn't want to murder Zod, but he had to out of necessity. This film, he just threw him and he's smiling. No problem. I just murdered these guys. It's okay. I mean, now people are going to come up to me, like attacking me, going like, "Oh, he probably sent him to the Phantom Zone." They don't say that. They never say that in the movie that they went to the Phantom Zone. All we literally see is them falling to their death, and there's mist around. We don't see their bodies, but yes, they're definitely dead. Then people go like, "Oh, but in the TV version, you see there's a police car, police cruiser and stuff, and there's like another van that probably has them going to jail." Okay, let's be real. I think even Richard Donner has said that those TV versions aren't even canon. So yeah, like those versions have nothing to do, with this movie. And also, why the hell would Superman allow them to go to jail? First of all, now of course you have Superman destroying the Fortress of Solitude. He tells Lois that this is a that it just cannot be. He has a responsibility to the world, and unfortunately, just it's best that they just cannot be together. Now, they do have Superman going back in time again, like turning time around, like in the first movie. And admittedly, I'm not the biggest fan of both endings, whether it's the Donner cut or the theatrical cut, but at least in this version, you don't have Superman kissing away Lois's memories, which was super dumb. And I'm glad that it's not in this version. That's why I will always watch the Donner cut over the theatrical cut any day. I like the theatrical cut. Don't be wrong. I have childhood memories of that theatrical cut. But like, yeah, I would watch the Donner cut anytime. But Superman turns back time. General Zod is no longer is released. Lois Lane has no memories of him being Superman. And well, there's that. Clark Kent's just now back to normal, and Lois Lane has no idea what's going on, and that's it. Then you have obviously the iconic ending of Superman flying to space. You have him smiling at the camera, and then there's that. All right. Well, obviously, like that concludes the review. I love this movie still, like overall. Now, I will hopefully try to continue this marathon as the next review will be about Superman 3. Yeah, we're gonna get to the dark times of Superman, but yeah. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you do if you do like this video, please hit that like button. And if you want to watch more content, please hit that subscribe button. All right. Well, I hope we all have a good night. Talk to you all soon.